Now, the hitch is, as of May 19, 1986, Congress banned the manufacturer, the new manufacturer of machine guns by individual ownership. So, as of May 19th, the supply was shut off. It was due to an amendment, the Hughes Amendment, on the Gun Owner Protection Act, and it was one of those midnight voice votes. You can look it up online. It was horribly upside down. The people that were into it, the few people that were not voting for it, the leadership at the time said, absolutely, it will pass. So that's something we've got to argue about and fix at another time. For right now, I just want to go into what we do. And machine guns have been banned and manufactured for individual ownership as of May 19, 1986. So that's a pretty simple explanation of why they're as expensive as they are. As of making this video, we've got about 6 more days before the 30-year anniversary since any have been manufactured. So because of the basic laws of supply and demand, the prices are through the roof. A regular AR-15 prior to May 19, 1986 used to be the same price as an M60. They didn't care. They could make another one and sell it, transfer it out. Because the inventory is closed off, we're dealing with a finite inventory, an infinite amount of interest, so the prices have nowhere to go but up. In regards to federal law, there is no machine gun license. There is no machine gun permit. What there is a transfer. You purchase a machine gun, the title to it, just like an automobile, is transferred to you. The title fee is $200, and that's the part that most people use for a license or a permit, but it is not. It's nothing that you have to renew every year. You're not transferring the title every year. You don't have to let anyone into your home, inspect your firearms. Here you have them. They're your legally owned firearms. So there are not problems with giving up our Fourth Amendment. There are not human licensing fees. You have to follow along. It's just a kind of freedom. Now, where it gets confusing, and I absolutely understand the confusion, is when some dump like me introduces a new firearm that you and I both know has only been manufactured for months, and I'm shooting it full on. Now, there are a few different ways that we can do that. There are sears and conversion devices that are registered as transferable machine guns. They were manufactured and registered before May 19, 1986. These transfer just like any other machine gun. And then it doesn't matter, as long as it's in the same firearm family, it doesn't matter what they use for a host for this conversion device. Like I'll use quite often the USA 416. These were not made prior to 1986, but the sear inside, as long as you have one of those, you can buy one that was manufactured yesterday and use that sear. This is no more than a host legally. So that should help clear up a little bit of confusion. Now these conversion devices and these sears are just as expensive as any other machine gun. Their numbers go up. They're actually included in the number of machine guns that are available to transfer. So there are no inexpensive ways left. Everything is very, very expensive. Something else that adds to the confusion is the existence of what are classified as post-86 dealer samples. That is when a licensed machine gun manufacturer makes a new machine gun to demonstrate to the military, to law enforcement, to government entities, this new design. That is not illegal. Somebody that's licensed as an NFA dealer or manufacturer can still have machine guns that were manufactured after May 19th, 1986. The caveat is you have to keep that license up. It has to be a current license. If you get a license to deal machine guns and manufacture machine guns, you either make or purchase something. When you give that license up, the possession is restricted to you keeping that license intact. So they would have to be transferred to someone else that's qualified to have them. So that's the vast majority of the guns that you see that are newer firearms. They're either guns that someone is using a registered machine gun conversion device with and using the firearm itself as the host, or it's a post-86 dealer sample that someone that is an NFA firearms manufacturer made as a demo firearm. So manufacturing a machine gun happens at the point where you, on an M60, we'll stick with M60s today to keep it easy, an AR-15. The point where you drill a hole in the receiver to accommodate a factory auto seal, that's manufacturing a machine gun. At that point, you can use all of the factory M60s, drop it in and run. off the upper receiver once it's sitting inside, and it pivots just like the factory seat done without having to do anything. The drop-in works the same as the factory seat does. Into the receiver and has a separate paddle that comes up the rear of that takedown lug and works in conjunction with a semi-auto parts kit. If there are any full auto parts in it, it won't work at all. It's meant to be used with a semi-auto parts kit only. And those are just as expensive as a registered receiver or a drop-in auto sear at this point. Everything is a ridiculous amount of money. There are no easy ways to get involved financially. So what do we have for options? Well, you'll notice Slide Fire Industries several years ago came out with a bump stop. There are a few other companies that have come up with offerings in the meantime, but they all work on the same principle. And you might ask why those are legal, and it's because the definition of a machine gun is a firearm that fires more than one round with a single pull of the trigger. The Slide Fire stock and all of its recent configurations requires a separate pull of the trigger for each round to be fired. And if you look at it in slow motion, someone's using one, even though it outwardly sounds like a machine gun, and the downrange effect is pretty much the same, the rifle is sliding back and forth inside of that stock, and there's a separate trigger pull for each round being fired. I know it sounds ridiculous. I don't make the rules. I'm just helping to explain what they are. And from a distance, the Slide Fire might look like it's performing the same as the machine gun, but once you zoom in a little bit, you can clearly see the rifle moving back and forth, giving you only one shot to pull the trigger. So I hope that helps you explain a little bit of the confusion, the things that you might see online, reading magazine articles where it's not explained from the beginning all of the time. Sometimes we assume that everybody's kind of in tune with this stuff as much as we are, and we've all got our things that we really follow close and track on, and it's good to share that information. There's just as ridiculous a situation in regards to pistols and short-barrel rifles and any other weapons and things of that nature. And we'll follow this video up sometime in the very near future with something on helping explain why something may be a pistol and not a short-barrel rifle when outwardly they look almost identical. We'll save that for another time very soon. So I hope you enjoyed this quick video to help explain a little bit about the things that you see in print and online, and they make a little bit more sense now. If you did, please click like, share us with your friends in your best social media universe, subscribe to the channel if you don't already, and until next time, have fun and be safe. Hello guys, and welcome to the first 360-degree interactive video on the channel. If you're gonna see on the Mac, you can mount the mouse and just drag the image to look around within the Knowledge Office. If you have a VR headset, even better, with a lot of joy, and if you're on the phone, just tilt the screen to actually see what's going around the camera. So this video is gonna be two parts. The part number one is the gameplay, to set up in a way that you get puzzle skills and very the time that's really good to watch. After this one, I'm gonna give you a short office tour to show you what actually happens to the knowledge at the top of this guide, showing there's a game.
Haters in the air, haters everywhere. Haters mutual, bitch. Fuck you, we can share. I got hate for days, I got wait for days. I got stick up on my plate, I ate for days. She had makeup on her face, she watched the wave. Right on my ex, put the Alexander Wang. Same when I'm in it, I can't leave without a bang. Just cause I'm 20 piece came from Johnny Dang. Don't make things for this racket, got some aims. Hacking and flipping and stack up on your chain. You can see niggas steady Haters in the air, haters everywhere. Haters mutual, bitch. Fuck you, we can share. I got hate for days, I got wait for days. I got steak up on my plate. I infiltration, had makeup on her face. She wants to wave. Right on my explicit Alexander Wang. This is bitches, this is not just anything. When I'm in it, I can't leave without a bang. Haters in the air, haters everywhere. Haters mutual, bitch. Fuck you, we can share. I got hate for days, I got wait for days. I got steak up on my plate. I infiltration. Haters in the air, haters everywhere. Haters mutual, bitch. Fuck you, we can share. I got hate for days, I got wait for days. I got steak up on my plate. I infiltration. Haters in the air, haters everywhere. Haters mutual, bitch. Fuck you, we can share. cause it can be just one done. And I don't need no height. I don't need no lights. Cause it can be just one done. And I don't need no help. Them niggas been to the they gas with a big belt. Give a damn who I offend. These shots that you put in the next end. These niggas lame and I fit in. Shots so good, it won't make it in. I don't give a damn if you bitch dead. Bet your drunk ass ain't gonna make me trip again, motherfucker. Whatever I wanna, I'm gonna do this shit alone, cause it can be just one gun. And I don't need no height. I don't need no lights. Alone, cause it can be just one gun. Whatever I wanna, I'm gonna do this shit alone, cause it can be just one gun. And I don't need no height. I don't need no lights. Alone, cause it can be just one gun. I don't need no light. I don't need no lights. Yo, come on, you been on Facebook. Yo, it rained in LA, and it fucked up my day. Told that bitch don't wear makeup today. I'm gon' nut on your face. Decided I should move in a new way, so I brought a new way.
Hey guys, we just stopped.
I'm ready.
Let's do it.
He's going over to get a picture. Are you ready?
Well, Jose is on here. Yeah, I love it. I think it's a great gun. I think it's very easy to hide, and the holster I used was a Nemesis.
Garby. Johnson. Walking down the street with a sword. I don't really care cause I'm bored. If I see you, then I send you to the Lord. Cops try to take me down to court. Had to hit him with the 3-sword style. Then I beat the case like Kyle. I ain't touched my willy in a while. Next time I whack off, it's probably gonna go a mile. River Nile, Book of Belial, ancient riddles, codes and sigils. The wise men of old taught us how to make drones and missiles. Alrighty. Hope everyone had a nice Halloween. This Halloween, I had a sort of a dreary realization. On Halloween day, I was just chilling with my family. And my niece and stuff, they went out to go trick-or-treating. I didn't go. I was just chilling with my dad. And we were the ones who were answering the door and handing out candy. And there were like no kids. There were like barely any kids that came and knocked on the door for candy. And I've realized I've noticed this as a trend. For a while, there's been less and less kids going out trick-or-treating. And this might seem, like a good thing, these annoying kids. I could just chill, I don't gotta worry about handing out candy to everyone, but this was kind of sad. This was kind of a sad thing for me because now, like, I talked about it a little in one of my main channel videos, being aware of this demographics issue, how there's less and less young people, seeing barely any kids out on the street going trick-or-treating, and my niece, she just went alone, like with her mom, with my sister. And yeah, when I was a kid, I went with all my friends, you know, this big group of friends. We'd go trick-or-treating, and she just had to go alone. So we felt kind of bad for her too. Just like barely any kids out trick-or-treating. This might not hit you. I'm gonna try to explain it well. How sad it is that there's less and less young people and that there's less and less community and less people doing things like this. Because it really just kind of hit me. Like, Halloween was like a fun, cool thing. It was a community thing. You go out, you talk to your neighbors, get candy. And there was barely any of that. The streets were dead on Halloween. I mean, dude. And, yeah, this is a big trend. Like, toy stores are shutting down. There was Toys R Us, but even local toy stores are shutting down. Marriage places are shutting down. It's part of the family being broken apart. People having less and less kids. People having kids when they're older. These helicopter parents, all this bullshit. And, it's sad. It's just sort of sad. It's truly a new era. Everything's so atomized. Everything's delegated to, like, I don't know, man. It just hit me this Halloween. No kids were out there trick-or-treating. And when I was a kid, it just seemed, maybe it's all rose-tinted glasses. Maybe there's nothing going on. Maybe I'm just tripping, dog. But when I was a kid, it didn't seem like this. When I went out in the streets for trick-or-treating, tons of kids. And even then, like, in the late 2000s, early 2010s when I was, like, trick-or-treating, these problems were starting to rear their head a little bit. They were really starting to start then. Or, they probably started, but they were starting to sort of develop then, and it just, like, exponentially increased to the point we're at now. But, yeah, I went on a date. Oh, I think this sort of explains it well. I went on a date over the summer with this girl. We were at a pool, and there were some kids at the pool doing cannonballs in the pool, yelling, jumping in, woo, having fun. And I was looking at them like, yeah, that's cool. I miss being a kid, you know. They were, like, jumping off the diving board, all this stuff. And this girl was like, she was very annoyed. She was like, I hate kids. I definitely don't want to abort them all. She said some shit like that, you know, implying that she wants to abort all the children. And she was being genuine. And I've seen this sentiment a lot with young women, and it's like, that's some real, like, weird, twisted devil shit. These people just have a hatred for kids. And I understand they're a little annoying, they're little shits, but, like, when I look at them, I see purity. I see innocence, fun. And as there's less and less of them, and people are going to have less and less of them, these women hate kids. They just want to kill them. And as that happens more and more, I think the world just looks more bleak, you know? It's just not as fun when there's less and less young people. And you just go out and see a lot of old people. It's possible even back then when I had a good community growing up and was going out with all these kids. Maybe I was lucky. Because I'm pretty sure, you know, it's tough. It's tough. That's why everybody's using online now. Or at least one of the reasons why everybody's using online now to connect with people who are like-minded, number one, because it's hard to find like-minded people when everything is so, it's sort of polarized, the way people think, and also just people your age, if you're young. Yeah, I mean, these people just hate children. I don't know what it is. Like, what? A woman just hating children? That it seems so backwards to me. Like, to me, it was always all these girls, whenever somebody had a baby, like, oh, I love it, yeah. Or a toddler, they're all mooching over the kid. It's like, something twisted is happening in my baby. It ain't looking too bright. it didn't really make me sad. I sort of internalized and realized these things. I'm stoic about it. But it's like, holy moly, man. Isn't that sad? Toy stores closing down. This, you know, that's a melancholy world. The families falling apart, people not having kids, community. I mean, hey, it is what it is. And I saw it, I was looking at all the average ages, and in Japan it's like 50. I think in many ways, if you look at a lot of aspects of the East in Japan, you can see like where we're headed. Everything is like, every part of human life, including socialization, it's like all capitalistic. It's all, you have to go purchase it all, and it's all segmented into its like purest form you can buy. So there's like, you know, there's like phone cafes where you pay and talk to a girl, and like all this weird shit. You just don't get it naturally anymore. It's just all paid. I see that. I see things going there. People are already meeting relationships through apps, but then it's going to be friends through apps. Well, even that's already happening. Nobody uses like Bumble for friends, but people meet online through social media all the time. I wouldn't be surprised if that's how, like, I don't know if the majority, it's possible that's how the majority of friends meet in 2022. So everything is just becoming like streamlined, segmented. I can't articulate it well. But you know, it doesn't happen naturally. Everything's becoming artificial. And, like super contrived, paid for. Yeah, it's tough. And I don't think this loneliness issue, this postmodern like lack of community only affects men. I think girls get lonely in a way that's different. Like men are completely destitute. But I mean, I think when I look at my niece, it's sad. You know, she has these helicopter parents and not no community growing up. She's just like on her iPad all the time. It's like, I don't know. Yeah, well, I've been trying to make these videos longer because I have a hard time talking for an extended amount of time. But I think I've spoken my mind on the subject. I feel like I'm missing something I wanted to say. It is what it is. Catch you later. Everything's gonna be okay. Alright? I believe that it's gonna be okay in the end. If it's not okay, it's not the end, my baby. Have a blessed day. I went to Burger King. I got a burger. Your grandma is a squirter. I'll take it further. She's sucking on my worm like it's a Werther's. Yeah. My name is Gerber. I'm eating yogurt. I like 15-year-old girls. What's up? You know, is God real? What happens after you die? What's going on here? These are the questions we've been asking for, at least 15 years. And I'm here to answer them. Contrary to popular belief, Gerby has all the answers. There's not really anything I can't answer if I don't think about it for enough, time. And here's what I'll say. Christianity is hypocritical, and here's why. On one hand, they say no gays, right? Gay, that's not good. But then on the other hand, they tell you accept Jesus Christ into your heart. So one day you're going to tell me that I can't be gay. The next you're telling me to accept a dude into my heart. Like, is that not fruity? So Christianity, that shit's out the window. That makes no sense. No, I'm just kidding. That's a joke. Let's see. I have to write shit down. Otherwise, I'll go completely off the rails. That's what always happens. Religion. Oh, okay. I grew up Christian. And then, you know what happens with a lot of people who grow up Christian between the ages of like 10 to 14, then you're not Christian anymore. And now I feel like I'm looping back around into it. But here's how I look at religion right now, before I get wild into all the mumbly jumbly. I just look at religion as a rule book. I think that all of the values inside of the Judeo-Christian shit that dude, I'm so stupid. Let me just pause for a second, and I'm gonna actually articulate myself. You fucking moron. You little dicked loser. You coward. Alright. The Judeo-Christian values that built society as we know it, in Western society, they're good. And we see what happens when we start to lose those bitches. Everybody's running around, causing a ruckus, playing with their worm, doing abhorrent shit. And society's falling apart because you ain't sticking to the values, my baby. So that's what I'm saying. The values are good. I look at religion as a rule book. You know, religion, like, if you go into the linguistics of it, or whatever the fuck, the semantics, you do something religiously. It's a way of behavior. It's not a way of believing. And I feel like a lot of the Christians I grew up with, they just believe in it, but they don't even do any of the Christian shit. They're running around fucking. They're being goobers, you know? Doing all the 7 deadly sins. They're greedy. After church, you know, here's the weird thing. After church, they're all like hard pressed about the no sex before marriage thing. But then right after church, there's like these processed donuts, a bunch of processed food they're eating. Like, is that not gluttony? If you want to, like, I don't know if all the sins are equal. I forgot about that, but I remember, like, someone told me the sins are sort of, you know, they're all sins. We're all sinners, and they're all bad. But you're gonna crack down really hard on this one thing, but then right after the service, people are throwing down honey buns on these fat fucks in church. What's the deal? Jesus ain't down for that shit. Was Jesus fat? No. Get your life together. I'm just playing. I love fat people. Fat people, I love people. I think they're great. Honestly, they're like the most chill people. You know what I'm saying? I think they're cool. What else do I have? A rule book. Religion is a rule book that should be followed. Anything that extends beyond the values and what it teaches, when you get into the metaphysical, that's when I just lose all, like, ability to fucking... That's when I lose interest, honestly. It's impossible to comprehend. Even if you are Christian, if you believe in a God, for the most part, unless you're believing in some hurdy-gurdy little-ass jank religion, God is infinite, immeasurable, undefinable. So how are you going to run around talking about him like you know shit? The finite mind cannot grasp the infinite. So I've had so many conversations with other speakers, and it just, like, my mind just stops working after a little bit because it's impossible to really comprehend the shit. So when it comes to metaphysics, I have no idea. But all I know is that the rules are good. The values are good. And they were what built society, and they are what's going to would keep it going. They're probably not going to because that shit's dying. But that's what I know. So the fact that the values are good, that lends credence to it. But all the metaphysical shit, I mean, there's a lot of holes in it, but also it's just impossible to think about. The one thing, well, there were a couple things that, sort of thinking about it in the metaphysical sense when I was starting to doubt Christianity when I was like 13. I can't remember what it was, somewhere around there, my early teens, preteens. There were a few things that sort of catalyzed me moving away from it. The first is the idea of hell. Just generally, the idea that if you disagree, or if you don't accept Jesus into your heart, you're going to die you're going to burn forever in a lake of fire. That's ridiculous. That's wild shit. That's wild shit. And you've probably heard all the arguments, just whatever. What you believe in is primarily based off your geography, right? If you're born in Syria, you're going to be Muslim. If you're born in China, I don't know if they're the Buddhist or some shit. Whatever goes on, you believe what you're raised in, what your family believes, what your culture believes, right? So the idea that all these people who just by virtue of geography, just by chance, they weren't raised in Christianity, they don't have a concept of it, it's not a thing, they're just going to burn in hell forever. Johnson? So what's up with that, man? That's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of goofy. So that's one of the things that brought me away from it. And to this day, I don't know how I could reconcile that. I am getting back into Christianity, and I guess the way I think about it is that I truly believe that the whole idea of hell being a lake of fire that you burn forever after you die, that was a forced, contrived interpretation of the Bible from corruption. Like, it was a corruptive tactic, a fear tactic to control people. That whole idea of hell. You could believe in hell as separation from God, but when you go into that could mean a whole variety of things. The idea that you're going to be in eternal suffering if you don't believe what
I think hell is more like a place on earth, like a state of mind and a level of consciousness as opposed to a physical place.
That's a control tactic that was artificially added to the whole belief system. That's truly how I feel. And I went to a private school for my first 2 years of school, and I remember they talked about it like, I believe in Islam, they think that the Bible is like a watered-down version of the original text. And they said that can't be because the analogy of a game of telephone is used a lot, like how it's passed down from one person to another and it gets diluted. But the scribe system was very, they paid attention to detail, very methodical, it was perfect. It was not perfect, it was fucking very accurate. So the scribe system can't really be compared to a game of telephone, the system that they use to pass down the Bible. But I'm not saying it was like,
oh, it was so close.
Somebody made a oopsie. I'm saying, look at all the corruption that happened with religion for all these years. You're telling me some guy with an agenda didn't fuck the shit up so they can control people, get more money, get more power. Like, the fear of hell is a great way to control people. That shit had to be implemented. No shot. And also another thing about religion, I always grew up where Christianity and evolution were like mutually exclusive. You couldn't believe in both of them. But it's weird because all of these Judeo-Christian values are what kept our sort of our primitive instincts in check and allowed us to ascend them. Like, they're what brought society forth out of the jungle, are these values that runs counter to our monkey brain, to our Freudian id, if you will. All these values suppress these animalistic parts of us. So it's kind of, I don't know how, it seemed like these religious doctrines were somewhat acknowledging of our true nature, our true human nature, which derives from evolution. I don't know. I thought maybe they didn't know about evolution, but the Bible does say humans are naturally sinful, I just thought of something else. What else was I thinking about? I forgot about it. It is what it is, my baby. I feel like it was a juicy subject, but then it just slipped out of my mind. That's what happens, man. All this fucking is making me lose my damn memory. Having so much sex, I can't even do my memory. Oh yeah, another thing that
Bro, I can't do this shit.
was weird is that they say in the Bible that God is all powerful and also all good, but that can't be true because there is suffering. And yeah, so that's a contradiction. There has to be good. There has to be bad for there to be good. But that's a rule, right? That's the rule. And if God can't bend that rule, then he's not all powerful. So it's contradictory. People try to wiggle their way out of it. It's actually no way. I've seen the conversations. There cannot be something that is all powerful and all good. It don't make no sense. So there you go. The idea, there has to be good for there to be bad. There has to be bad for there to be good. And that is a rule that God cannot bend. Therefore, he's not omnipotent. Or whatever the thing
Omnipresent.
So there you go. That's another thing I've been thinking about, but it doesn't change the fact.
Dude, my teammate's fucking goated. I'm not even gonna lie to you.
Values are good. So I don't know. I don't really need to think about it beyond
Goated teammate.
be like, well, actually, this doesn't make sense. All these values are good, and I want to get back into the church. I just don't know how I can reset it. Like, I don't know. I feel like most people aren't really thinking that hard at church anyway. They're just fucking as part of a community, whatever. I guess I'm a Christian. I don't fucking know. Yeah, whatever. Have a blessed day.
I used to believe in God, like our very articulate speaker for us. I believed firmly in God. I was an ordained minister. I preached the gospel for 19 years. I felt His presence in my mind as I prayed. I got goosebumps as I was in communion with what I thought was the Holy Spirit of God. As I read the Holy Bible and read about the resurrection of Jesus, I dedicated my life to preaching that gospel that I thought was so real. It gave so much meaning, so much hope, so much beauty to the world. But I've changed my mind. I now know I was deluded. I was having a very brutal, very powerful, but mental experience. It happens in most conditions. I won't tell you my whole story, but I went through a process of deconversion. It took 4 or 5 years, starting as a firm believer, evangelical, street preacher. In the foreword to my book, Godless, it's called that story, Richard Dawkins writes, Dan Barton was not just a preacher, the kind of preacher you do not want to sit next to him on the bus. That was me. I was so convinced. I was so in love with Jesus, my Savior, my Lord, that I went through a process. Evangelical fundamentalist, where I migrated into more of a moderate, where I preach less hell and more love, into more of a more liberal stage in my life. So eventually I dumped out all the bathwater and I found out there's no baby there. It's just words, it's just arguments. But from the very articulate word we heard tonight, we didn't see any dots connected. We heard a lot of arguments, but when it comes to evidence, only 2 pieces were offered, which we would probably get personal experience and the resurrection of Jesus. If nothing comes from nothing, then God cannot exist. Because God is not.
Good pre-jump. What the fuck?
And if God is something, then you've just got yourself in the book. Today is Thursday.
I fucked up, bro. Hit that shit.
Thursday. What does it mean? It's the day that millions of people believed in the God for. There was a gap in understanding. There was a mystery. What is that noise in the sky? What are those lights? What is all this? What is that? It must be an angel. It must be some deed, it must be some being or something. And they named it Thor. And today we have a day of the week. We don't have a Jesus Day, but we do have a Thor Day. That millions of people maybe some still do. But that deity has found itself on the scrap heap of history. Just like when I look at the deity I used to believe in, the God of the Bible. It started for me with the simple idea that Jesus told a parable about the prodigal son. A parable is what? It's a fiction. It doesn't matter if the prodigal son actually existed in history. It was a moral tale that matters. The ancient Israelites made up a parable or a metaphor about Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden and a talking snake. Look up in the dictionary the word
Fuck, bro. I hate this fucking lag, dude.
Just because of evolution. I assume everyone in this room accepts the solid fact of the evolution of the human species. So Adam and Eve could not have been real people. It was a metaphor, and many Christians accept that fact. They know there's metaphor, figures of speech in the Bible. But in my process, if the prodigal son is a fabrication, if Adam and Eve are a metaphor, then what about this other character, this Yahweh, this Jehovah, this Elohim character? Where do you draw the line? When we know that humans are very good at inventing myths, like the turtle, and my Native American ancestors, the turtle that swam across the waters, brought up the mud from the bottom, created the continents. A beautiful story, a wonderful metaphor, but that didn't really happen. The God character himself is also one of those fictions I came to realize. Maybe a useful fiction, maybe it gave meaning, maybe it gave hope, maybe it gave purpose, a fiction nonetheless. The reason I am a non-believer today is because of the lack of evidence and argument for a deity. If there were any real evidence for a God, then by now someone should have won the Nobel Prize for pointing that out. Any scientist in the world would jump at the chance to say, there we go. I mean, if there is a hitherto unknown force of the cosmos that we haven't yet been able to determine, what scientist in the world would not love to make that point? That hasn't been done yet. All we have are what we would call, and I think many believers call God of the gap. The thunder and lightning was a gap that is now closed. The perhaps fine-tuning of the initial constants, perhaps the origin of the Big Bang. We do have some gaps in science. In fact, it is those gaps that drive science. Without those gaps, we wouldn't have scientific inquiry. What we are offered with is faith and belief. And you were very eloquent.
Oh, fucking hate my life.